Welcome to the deep dive. Now, if you're anything like me, maybe you listen to podcasts like Chat Like a Native and you think, wow, how do they do that? How does their English just flow so easily, so authentically? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place today because we're getting into that big question for so many intermediate English learners. How do you make that jump, from just functional English to sounding really fluent, natural, confident? Okay, so what if I told you there's this kind of linguistic secret weapon? Maybe a shortcut. It's not about memorizing like tons of grammar rules. It's about idioms. And these aren't just weird phrases. They're short, they're colorful, and they can seriously upgrade your everyday chat, make your English more expressive, more engaging. So stick with us, because by the end of this deep dive, you're going to walk away with 7 really practical, memorable phrases, things you can start using like right away. We'll cover stuff like how to say someone's exactly right, or talk about things being super expensive, or, those late nights working. It's not just about knowing the meaning, right? It's the when and how. So let's bring in our expert. Tell us a bit more about the power of these unique tools. Why are they so key for fluency?
That's a great question to start with. Because idioms, they're really so much more than just words strung together. What's really fascinating, I think, is how they act like little windows, into a culture's way of thinking, its emotions even. Think of them almost as like cultural shorthand. A lot of them have these historical roots, right? They came from literal things people did or saw, like burning the midnight oil that literally came from using oil lamps to work late. Knowing that kind of helps us stick. But beyond history, they pack in so much attitude, feeling, and just shared understanding really efficiently. They don't just state facts, they add flavor, personality. So the real key for you, the learner, isn't just memorizing definitions, it's grasping the context. When do you use them? How do you use them right? That's what helps you connect more naturally, more confidently. And that's exactly what we're focusing on today. We want you to feel ready to actually use them.
I love that cultural shorthand. That really clicks. Okay, let's get into these 7 power idioms then, these upgrades for your English. First up, instead of just saying, you're exactly right, which is fine, but maybe a bit plain, try this upgrade. Hit the nail on the head.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. It basically means someone just said something, made a comment, or maybe described a situation that is absolutely 100% accurate. It's about perfect precision, nailing the truth. So imagine you're in a meeting, maybe discussing a project, and someone says, I think we ran into problems because we didn't test enough. Instead of just nodding and say, yeah, true, you could say, you hit the nail on the head. We definitely rushed the testing. See how much stronger that sounds? It's immediate agreement.
Yeah, it is strong. And the image is so clear, isn't it? Like hitting a nail perfectly. Quick question, though. Does it only work for ideas or statements? Or could you use it if someone did something perfectly, like an action?
That's a good clarification point. It's primarily used for ideas, comments, analyses, descriptions. So you'd say, her analysis of why sales dropped really hit the nail on the head. You probably wouldn't use it for a physical action. Like you wouldn't say, wow, he hit the nail on the head with that amazing tennis serve. Even though the phrase comes from a physical image, its common use now is for, verbal or intellectual accuracy. Super useful in meetings, discussions, even casual chats to show you really agree with someone's sharp point.
Got it. Okay. Crucial difference there. It adds way more punch than just saying, you're right. All right, moving on from perfect accuracy. What about when things go wrong? When you find yourself in a bit of trouble, instead of just in trouble, try this much more vivid phrase, in hot water.
In hot water. Yeah, it's a great one. It's a really expressive way to say someone's in a difficult spot, an uncomfortable situation. And usually it implies it's because they did something wrong, made a mistake. The image itself, hot water, suggests discomfort, maybe pressure. Like she's in hot water with her manager because she missed the deadline again. You immediately get a sense of the trouble she's in.
Yeah, you really do. It feels more intense than just in trouble, doesn't it? Like there are real consequences, maybe some heat from the boss. You can almost feel it.
Exactly. Using this makes your description much more engaging. It paints a clearer picture, a more evocative one for whoever you're talking to. It carries a stronger sense of those negative outcomes. It's very common. You'll hear a lot.
Okay, so from being in a tricky spot, let's shift to actually doing something difficult. That moment when you have to face something unpleasant, something you've been avoiding, but it's unavoidable. The idiom for this is fantastic. Bite the bullet.
Bite the bullet.
Yeah, this one means you finally decide to do something hard or unpleasant, maybe even painful, because you just have to. There's no way around it. The origin story is pretty intense, apparently. Soldiers used to literally bite a bullet during surgery before anesthesia to cope with the pain. So it really conveys that sense of grim determination, facing something tough head on. Think about the dentist example. I really didn't want to go for that root canal, but I finally bit the bullet and scheduled it. You know, you dread it, you put it off, but eventually you accept you have to do it.
Oh, yeah, the dentist. That definitely resonates. It perfectly captures that feeling of just accepting the inevitable, unpleasant thing. Can you use it for smaller stuff too? Or is it mostly for big, scary challenges? That's a good question about scale. You can use it for minor things, sometimes humorously, like, oof, I had to bite the bullet and attend that 2-hour meeting. But typically, it implies something that takes a bit of real courage or mental effort, a significant hurdle you have to overcome. A good tip is maybe use it right before you describe the difficult action you took. It emphasizes the effort involved, especially if you've been avoiding it. Adds a little drama to your story.
Right, adds that context of reluctance overcome. Okay, makes sense. Now let's flip things. What about something that seemed bad at first but actually turned out to be good? This one's really hopeful, changes your perspective. A blessing in disguise.
Ugh, a blessing in disguise. This is such a useful idiom. It perfectly describes those situations where something bad happens, you lose your job, maybe your relationship ends, but later on, you realize it led to something unexpectedly positive. It highlights that silver lining you didn't see at the time. The classic example is something like, losing my job felt awful then, but it was a blessing in disguise. It pushed me to start my own business, and I'm so much happier now. So the initial event was negative, but the outcome was positive.
That's a really powerful one. It's not just saying, oh, it worked out okay. It implies there was something genuinely good hidden inside the bad experience, like a hidden gift revealed later. It's all about hindsight, isn't it?
Exactly. It encourages reflection, looking back and seeing how a tough time might have actually opened a door to something better. So you'd use it when you're reflecting on a past event that felt negative at the time but ultimately brought some kind of benefit. A really common way to express that kind of perspective shift.
Okay, next. Those potentially awkward moments, like meeting new people. You want to start a conversation, make things feel less stiff. We have a classic for this. Break the ice.
Break the ice. Yes, everyone knows this one. It's great. It means doing or saying something to make people feel more relaxed and comfortable, especially when they're meeting for the first time or maybe the atmosphere is a bit tense. It's about, melting that initial awkwardness. So if you say, at the party, he told a funny joke to break the ice, everyone understands immediately. He made people relax, open up, start talking.
It's so essential for social stuff, right? That initial stiffness can be such a barrier. And this phrase captures the act of removing it. It feels active, like you're making an effort.
Spot on. It implies a deliberate action to ease the situation. Perfect for describing efforts to get conversations going, reduce awkwardness, whether it's a party, a new team meeting, networking event, whatever. Very proactive phrase.
All right, now for something maybe less pleasant, but very relatable. Money. When something is just very expensive, we have a much more dramatic, colorful way to say it. Cost an arm and a leg.
Ah, yes. Cost an arm and a leg. This is fantastic because it uses exaggeration to show just how expensive something felt. It really makes your English more lively. When someone says, getting the car fixed after the accident cost an arm and a leg, you don't just understand it was pricey. You get the feeling it was really expensive, maybe painfully so. You feel the impact of the cost.
Yes, exactly. It's not just a price tag. It's the feeling of a major financial hit, maybe even a bit of regret mixed in. It tells a whole story about the cost.
Is it only for, truly huge expenses? Or can you use it if something just feels way too expensive for your budget?
It generally implies something feels excessively pricey. That could be something objectively expensive, like a sports car, or something subjectively expensive to you, like a surprise vet bill that drains your savings. It adds personality and emotion. Great for talking about anything that feels overpriced, bills, gadgets, maybe even a fancy meal out. Okay, makes sense. And our final idiom for today. For those times when you're working late, putting in the extra hours, this one paints a great picture. Burning the midnight oil.
Burning the midnight oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, this refers to staying up very late, often past midnight, working on something, studying, finishing a project, preparing for a presentation. The image comes from those old oil lamps people used to work by at night. It captures that feeling of dedicated, maybe slightly grueling extra effort. For example, he's been burning the midnight oil all week to get that report done before the Friday deadline. It clearly signals long, hard hours.
Oh, I can relate to that. College finals week, anyone. It's not just I stayed late. It implies real effort, pushing yourself, maybe exhaustion. It conveys dedication. Can it also hint that someone's working too hard, though? Like, negatively?
Yes, absolutely. While it often sounds positive, showing dedication, you can definitely use it to express concern, like, Jenny looks exhausted. I think she's been burning the midnight oil too much lately. It highlights the potential negative impact of working those long hours. So yeah, it's a versatile phrase for describing intense work or study periods, school stuff, big projects, demanding jobs.
Okay, so we've got these 7 fantastic idioms. Hit the nail on the head in hot water, bite the bullet, a blessing in disguise, break the ice, cost an arm and a leg, and burning the midnight oil. But here's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
For you listening. How do you actually make these stick? How do you get comfortable using them so they just come out naturally?
Yeah, that's the crucial part. Knowing is one thing, using is another. Okay, so practical tips. One really effective strategy is to group them by theme. Don't just learn random lists. Try learning idioms related to, say, emotions or work or maybe problems. It helps your brain categorize them. So burning the midnight oil and maybe bite the bullet could go in a work and effort group, Makes recall easier when you need one.
That makes total sense, like creating mental folders for them instead of just a random jumble organizes your linguistic toolkit.
Exactly. Another big one, use them in writing. Seriously, start weaving them into emails, messages, even just notes to yourself. Writing is often less pressure than speaking. The more you type them or write them out, the more they become part of your active vocabulary, ready to use when you speak.
And what about visual learners like me? I'm already picturing little drawings for these, flashcards or visuals maybe?
Oh, definitely. Visual aids are super powerful. Make flashcards, idiom on one side, maybe definition and a quick example sentence, or even a little doodle on the other, like draw someone literally breaking ice for break the ice, or someone looking stressed in a pot for in hot water. Those visual hooks really help cement them in your memory.
I love that idea. Okay, so active learning is key, but what about just like soaking it in, watching and listening? Seems relevant to chat like a native.
Absolutely essential. You need to hear these idioms in the wild. Immerse yourself in native English content. TV shows, movies, podcasts, yes, like this one, YouTube. It's all packed with idioms used naturally. Listen for how people use them. What's the context? What's their tone? That's how you really learn the nuances, not just the basic meaning.
Right. Context is everything. And finally, the big one. The one that maybe feels the hardest, but is probably the most important. Practice out loud.
Non-negotiable, really, if you want speaking fluency. You have to actually say the words. Make it a goal. Try to use one new idiom each day in conversation. Talk to yourself, talk to a language partner, record yourself on your phone. It might feel awkward at first, sure, but pushing through that awkwardness is where the real learning happens. You need to produce the language, not just understand it.
Okay, that's fantastic advice. So, time for a challenge for everyone listening. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. We just gave you 7 powerful idioms. Your challenge is this. Pick just 2 that stuck out to you, and over the next 24 hours, find a way to use them actively in a real situation. Maybe at work, maybe texting a friend, maybe in an online comment. Just use them. Remember, the goal isn't perfect memorization right now, it's activation, getting them out there. Honestly, you'll probably surprise yourself how quickly your English starts to feel a little more natural, a bit more like the confident speaker you want to be. Give it a shot.
And just remember, these 7 are, just a starting point, a really powerful one, but still just a sample of this amazing part of English. But they can make a real difference, make your conversations richer, your stories more engaging, and boost your confidence. Fluency isn't about cramming hundreds of these overnight. It's about mastering a few, understanding them deeply, and then using them again and again. Because fluency, it really is built one powerful phrase at a time, one confident conversation at a time. So keep practicing, keep listening, keep trying them out, and pretty soon you'll be hitting the nail on the head every single time you speak.
That's a brilliant way to wrap it up. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today. We really hope this helps you feel more empowered, more expressive in your English journey. Feel free to listen back anytime you need a quick refresher, and hey, share it with a friend who might find it useful too. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep chatting.